Hello, Monster Hunters, J3 here. So the open beta for Monster Hunter Wilds has just passed. This video will be mainly going over about how I feel about each weapon in the wilds, how it changed with the new system mechanics such as the wound, hits, perfect guard, offset abilities, and focus strikes. So I might miss some important points about a weapon since I wanted to try them all, at least a little, with the little time that we had in the beta. I was able to clock in at about almost 20 hours in the beta, so I can only give you so much about it until a little lore about me is that I've been playing at the start of Worlds. I finished Worlds and Iceborne. I did a little bit of Rise, only base Rise, and a little bit of Sunbreak. So I haven't been playing as long as others in the portables. Alright, our first weapon, Greatsword. Since the Greatsword can be steered now, you're able to get a lot of your true charge slash off of that, and I think that's one of the biggest changes to this weapon. That's very good because I think it's also its biggest weakness now that it's covered. But of course, it's not going to be perfect every time. It's not like you're going to get 100% true charge slash, but it will help it a lot. And when they're sleeping, it'll be a lot easier to hit, and you don't have to space it out. Even though it doesn't have a shield, it's able to perform perfect guard. A little hard compared to the shield weapons, but the fact that it has that option is still good. The offset attack could be charged, and this offset attack feels the most epic. The other weapons that have offset attack. The bad things about it is the focus slash range is very short, and it forces you to run in a direction. A lot of the times, I will still have to beat the weapon and run if I'm out of position from the boss. Even though I could rotate my recharge slash, I would still need to get in range, of course. And I would put Greatsword at a solid A. Next up, Sword and Shield. First off, I want to say the fast blocking is nice, so it's easier to hit the perfect guard on reaction. Mid jump lets you get the wounds on their back, so that you can get a focus strike mid air, so that's very good. Very nimble weapon, and they have the luxury of blunt and slash damage. Out of the weapons, I've had a pretty easy time creating wounds with this weapon as well, since I could attack from anywhere that I want. The full combo is a little bit different with the perfect rush. The bad thing is about this weapon would probably be the focus slash doesn't do too much damage, but we do have the option to go slash or blunt, which is pretty nice. And it's still one of the weapons that doesn't have that much range compared to all the other weapons, but it's one of the more mobile melee weapons. Sword and Shield, in my eyes, still is the jack of all trades since it could do it all. It hasn't changed much. It does have perfect guard now, and it could get the wounds on their back. I think that's a pretty big plus. But the gameplay is more or less the same with the combos, and I'm going to put Sword and Shield right next to Greatsword. Hammer. Good things about the hammer. Mighty Charge feels fun to use and doesn't take too much time to charge. The move that I like to use a lot when the monster is flinched or knocked down for a little bit. Of course, in full knockdown, I would still go for a big bang combo. They're able to create a lot of knockdowns, especially if they hit a wound during focus strike. I feel like I was getting knockdowns for days for this weapon. The bad thing is that it doesn't have that much range. You have to get pretty close, even though the big hammer. A lot of the moves are still pretty committal with Big Bang. And if none of my moves were charged, the recovery was very slow for the weapon. For the hammer, I would also put it in A, below Sword and Shield. Lance has the biggest window for perfect guard. It felt easiest to do power clash for the shield since I got it like 4 times in a row. Focus slash felt like it did a lot of damage, hitting multiple times, and it has great range on the focus strike, so it could reach the wounds that are very high up that other melee weapons can't do. The new combo that it has at the end has a triple strike with the poke. This weapon feels more or less the same. The cons, still a slow stationary weapon. A lot of the things you want to avoid is with the hop. And to me, yeah, the lance weapon in Wilds feels the same as previous iterations. So I'm gonna put lance in the B. Switch axe. My favorite part about Switch Axe this time around was the new combo after you do Elemental Discharge into, I believe it's called the Upbring Slash, or the R2 move after the Discharge. Both focus slashes in Axe and Sword does very good damage. The Sword and Axe felt like it was easier to charge up versus the last Switch Axe that I've tried before. This weapon also has an offset attack. I didn't feel the need to spam Wild Swing a lot, since the meter buildup was easier. But I will say the weakness of Switch X is still there. It's still pretty committal, especially if you are ramping up your discharge. And sometimes during Focus Strike, when Elemental Discharge is going off, the monster could move around and you might miss your Focus Strike. And to me, this still feels pretty slow. But despite that, I think the new combo is a good step for Switch Axe in the right direction. I'm going to put it in between Sword and Shield and Hammer. The A tier. Insect Glaive. This one I had the hardest time trying to figure out how I felt about it. Easier to identify where the bugs is going to charge the weapon. Or Focus Strike is easier versus the other melee weapons, because you can do it from long range. New combo from the ground lets you get your some of your bug power back if done correctly, and if you don't whiff. And then the cons, since a lot of the time I did spend on the ground and I wasn't trying to fly around that much, it might be due to the monsters, but I felt like I could play another ground weapon that doesn't have to fly around that much. Maybe in the future my opinion of Insect Glaive might change, but considering the beta, that it is beta, and the 3 monsters that we've fought, getting into that new combo took very long for me to get to. Comparing Insect Glaive to the other weapons, it didn't feel as fluid. I'm gonna put it in C tier. I'm hoping that it's because of the monsters in beta that I felt this way, so I will try this weapon again when the game releases. Heavy Bowgun. I feel like this weapon just keeps getting stronger every game that comes out. The drive-by is available. Not that important, but it's pretty fun. Simply shooting the wound gives more damage. Don't need to focus slash like the others. I was able to perfect guard on accident since it does have an auto guard. And I was able to get clash for a ranged weapon, so I think that itself is pretty strong. I would say the only hard part about Heavy Bowgun is that it's switching ammos and getting ammos and positioning. But other than that, I think Heavy Bowgun did very well again. The weapon is more or less the same also, but now it has access to perfect guard and has more flinches by shooting the wounds, and I would have to put this in A. Looking at the list again, I think I want to rearrange this a little bit since definition of what I think it means to be S. So we move this around. Probably put Heavy Bowgun in S. I'm not even a Heavy Bowgun main, but I think it deserves to be up there since it can do all the mechanics from a good safe range. Longsword. Oh man, so this is probably the weapon that I have the most hours in. There's armor in the beginning of Helmbreaker, and there's armor at the end of the combo of Helmbreaker. Now, I don't know why they did that. It's easier to get your meter now that you can hold R2 or right trigger to get more of your bar. Now that it's a lot easier to get to red, I think they just made this weapon a lot easier, a lot stronger. Has very good range. The Focus Strike, I was able to hit some wounds through the body as a longsword. You can sheath the Helm Splitter if you don't get a favorable plunge to not waste the stacks. And the stacks could be obtained through Focus Slash on the wound. There is still a long startup if you hold R2 for that bar. That's one of the weaknesses. And the Helm Splitter is still easy to miss as Monster Hunter games, but it might be due to my comfortability with the weapon, but I would put this weapon in S tier. The rotation for this weapon is just way too smooth for me this time around. And just getting meter is just easier. Just way too easy. We're gonna revise my list again. I think I'm gonna put Switch X behind Hammer. I think Hammer feels a little bit more buttery smooth to go in and out of the hits than Switch X. Switch X is just way more committal than Hammer, I think. The reason why that's important to me is because you can only get 1 to 2 hits in, especially against Ray Dao. So it's not like you could unload your whole combo unless you're playing with multiple people, of course. And on top of that, yeah, the funness factors for me. Dual blades. I think the good thing about it, I think this weapon got more mobile than ever. Since now that you have access to perfect dodge, it lets you attack while dodging. You get the perfect dodge. There's a new combo that you could do going into Demon Flurry combo. When you're not in demon form, you can still do damage if you have bar. To me, I think it has the coolest Focus Slash, pretty much Attack on Titan. Some things that I noticed is that for me, it's hard to create some wounds on this weapon compared to the other weapons. The stamina management is still there. Unlike Bow, we'll get to that soon. They can't recover their stamina in perfect dodge. Weapon still feels like death by 1,000 cuts, but I still think if you want to play hyper aggressive and keep zipping around, I think they did a great job with this weapon with dual blades. With dual blades, gonna be hard to say. I'm gonna put it in A, probably at the top of A. I'm gonna have that the definition of A. Actually, would I say it's better than Greatsword, Sword and Shield? Yeah, I think honestly in A, they're all pretty even, in my opinion. Hunting Horn. This weapon took me by surprise the most, and I probably had the most fun with. The new thing about this weapon is that it has Echo Bubble, and if the monster is on top of the Echo Bubble, and you're playing a song, it does more. All the bubbles do damage to the target, so I think that's a big plus. And it provides buffs to the team. During Focus Strike, you're also able to store notes. Since you can store notes now, that means you could play more songs, which of course equals more damage. The Epical Bubbles does take a long time to put down. You have to be strategic on when you put it down. Since there's a lot of setup with this weapon, some people might not like that. I will revisit this weapon again later on, especially when we get more notes to play with. So with the bubbles and the added damage that this weapon can do on top of the buffs, I would have to put this in A tier for sure. Top of A tier. Gunlance has access to perfect guard. Slightly less easier than Lance, but pretty easy. Not too bad. Good defense while poking and shooting shells. And the new combo is pretty fun to pull off. Very fun to pull off. Then you can go to a quick reload and then unload all your bullets into another worm stake. Very satisfying. This is how I wanted Lance to be, to have like something satisfying to do rather than just keep poking all the time. This addition to Gunlance makes the combos feel very devastating. Bad part about it would be the Focus Strike doesn't feel like it has that much range, and it does take a while for it to finish compared to the other weapons. The Wormfire takes a long time to pull off, so you do have to position that. The combo does take a long time to finish, and has low mobility as well still. And now that it has the new combo that unloads a lot of damage, I would have to put it in S tier. Charge Blade has more charges for the files. So we have longer combos in Chaos Axe mode. Access to perfect guard and clash in the offset move, pretty good. Has good range with the offset and Focus Strike, since the Focus Strike does lunge you in, so it's way easier to hit. And activates Chaos Axe mode if you hit the Focus Strike. Guard point can help in clutch situations, still there. You're not really stuck to trying to do SAED. You could stay in the Chaos Axe, which is a good option. Bad things about this weapon, I would say guard point is still difficult to land. There's more management since we can overload the files for more damage. Resource management could be annoying for some. SAED is still very easy to miss, but you could still steer it to hit the monster. Charging still takes as long as before. I wish there was other ways to charge your files. Since we could steer the SAED, I think it's a little easier to play than it was. I would have to put the Charge Blade in A tier. Between Greatsword and Sword and Shield. Light Bowgun. There's not much I could say about this weapon. It feels more or less the same as the previous Monster Hunter games to me. Like Insect Glaive, it has a safe Focus Strike, but it's a little harder to hit because of the projectile speed. But I will say it does a lot of damage if you can hit it, and I've seen the monster flinch every time I've hit it with Light Bowgun. Very mobile gunner with the side still. The cons about it is that since it's not the heavy bowgun, it doesn't have access to the guard. But I still believe Light Bowgun is a strong weapon, and I would still have to put it in the B tier. Bow has a setup that can have your arrows auto aim. So I've been landing a lot of 1,000 dragons for big damage if I ever had the tracker. The Focus Strike, when charged, easy to hit from long range, and it goes into a free Dragon Piercer for you. You regenerate all your stamina now on perfect dodges, which is very nice, and lets you stay aggro. I know this weapon will only get stronger with decos, but the fact that I was able to dish out a lot of good damage without Mighty Bow and stuff, and Dragon Piercer, Focus Strike, I think this weapon is very good. I didn't feel that much weaknesses. other than that it can't clash. And if you don't get your perfect dodges, the stamina is still very hard to manage without the perfect dodges. Dragon Piercer, Focus Strike you can still be hit out of, so you have to be careful of that. But despite those weaknesses, I would still have to put the bow in S tier. Oh, I forgot to add that the bow, now that the coat you don't need to buy the coatings anymore, it is used as a cooldown. So this is, of course, my opinion of the weapons that I tried within the 20 hours that I played Monster Hunter Wilds. This is beta. It could change, of course. I'm not a professional in any of these weapons. If you guys disagree, or if there's something that I missed to mention about the new weapons in the Wilds and their new mechanics, please let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.